Greetings, adventurers. This is DM Kurt, and I was recently running Against the Cult of the Reptile God, first edition module N1. And our intrepid adventurers had gotten to the temple, and it was kind of rough. There's only two of them. So I'm going to give you a little play-by-play on how they handled it and what the consequences were. So, they tromped through the marsh. They had an encounter with sturges, which nearly killed their horse. Then they managed to get to the temple. It was basically a earthen moat around a big hole in the ground. This hole in the ground had some wooden stairs, kind of like railroad ties, one after another, down into the depths. Slippery. Two of them, a mage and a fighter, slipped on their way down and slid all the way into the room at the very bottom of the stairwell, where 4 guards with spears were there. Some tense discussion, and a fight broke out because they couldn't provide a good excuse for why they were there at the temple. The party's fighter managed to dispatch the 4 level 0 cultists with spears and no equipment, taking some wounds on his own. And the party proceeded to go to the left and encounter a guard room, a barracks room of a couple of guards that they put to sleep, and then took the guards' spears and jammed them under the door so they wouldn't be able to escape. They came up with 2 more rooms full of sleeping guards, already off shift. They did the same thing, jammed spear tips under the doors to wedge them shut, and they carried on their merry way. Not a whole lot more in way of encounters as they explored. They got into the kitchen area with questionable food, and problem with this dungeon, it was mostly earthen and rough stone at best, very damp. And there was the fear that whatever food was down here that the cultists were eating could be moldy, could be questionable. So they left that alone. And then they came to... Easy there, fella. Easy there. Okay. They came to a couple of seemingly empty rooms, one of which had a little treasure hidden. And then at the end of the hallway, was a very stout door. A stout door that somebody had made a giant X on the front of, using a burnt out torch or whatever, so this ashen X just right across the door. Well, the party decided, let's try to bust into this, see what it is. It's obviously something very important, because they're trying to keep somebody out. Hence the stout door and the big black X. So they go into the room, and it's a big room with 4 pillars, holding up the ceiling. Okay, well, if you're in a big room and it's interesting with pillars and statues and stuff, that's probably a trap. It's probably going to be an issue. And this was no different. They started hearing singing of some type. A woman was singing, and it was so entrancing. Make some saving throws. They failed their saving throws, both of them, against charm. It was a harpy calling them forward. So they go to the other side of the room, where there's a corridor with deep, thick mud. They start tromping through the mud and are immobilized. They just cannot go any further under the effects of the charm. Now, this module is written with the intent on killing characters. They got to the point where they couldn't move, and the harpy came out and plucked them out of the mud, brought them to her lair, and then once they were there, the harpy took out a rusty dagger, which I don't understand why she needed. She had claws, and plucked out the fighter's eyes. This was as per the module. And I'm like, yeah, I could see this being the plan of action here for this monster to blind both of the characters and eat them at her leisure. Upon seeing this, the mage freaked out because that's one of his friends getting his eyes cut out. I gave him another saving throw because I think it was only fair. Normally, Charm Spell in first edition was pretty much, you're screwed for a couple of weeks. You're done. But he got another saving throw, made it, managed to break the charm and opened up with burning hands and a couple of darts. He's just a mage, you know. And he managed to down the harpy. Now in first edition, the harpies had 3 hit dice, and in second, they had 7. There's no way I was going to let a second level mage fight a 7 hit dice harpy. So I used the 3 hit dice rules from 1E. We're modifying these modules as we go. 1, because I'm using a first edition module and throwing 2E characters through it. And 2, because frankly, if you're running a module of any kind, it's probably a good idea to modify your module to fit your game, to fit your table. So, what was that? Yeah, I'll go back for it and pick it up on the way back. So he manages just barely to take out the harpy. Now, what has he got? The fighter, who was an NPC henchman, is blinded and incapable of defending himself. He'll be at a -4 to hit with all of his attacks. Navigation chances by himself, pretty much miserable. So, he makes his way out of the dungeon. The guards had not yet freed themselves from their stuck doors, and he fled. He fled past the small town that was nearby and all the way to the big city. He gave his former partner 30 gold pieces that he had looted from the harpy and said, well, good luck, there's really nothing more I can do. So this second level mage, who's going to be counting up a few XP, is going to be hiring a couple more henchmen to go with him as he tries to clear this temple of some cult. He's not sure what kind of cult, but it seems to have a widespread effect on the area around it. So the player's been rolling up a elf thief, and as a DM, I have another human fighter ready to go. And if we get more players, well, we can have them roll up some characters. Let's see how that goes, because we're going to go in there with a little bit more firepower and a little bit of knowledge on what's going on in there. Now, I am planning on giving the thief a little bit of info on a couple of people that live in the area that may be of use, so we can possibly involve a couple more NPCs. But that's how Against the Cult of the Reptile God is going so far. It was very nearly a TPK. Anyway, DM Kurt, out.